My younger brother schemed to frame me, and after 10 years of my devoted service to the company, it was my own father who coldly cast me out. "You're fired. Get out of here," I replied. "Yes, father." But they had no idea. That very moment was the starting point for the spectacular comeback I had quietly prepared. I am Matthew Carter, 35 years old, living in Erie, Pennsylvania, a small industrial city on the shores of Lake Erie, where the smell of steel and factory smoke blends with the cold wind from the lake. For the past 10 years, I've worked for Carter Manufacturing, my family's industrial equipment manufacturing company. The company wasn't just a workplace, it was my entire life. I grew up in the factory, running around among giant machines, watching my father, David Carter, command the workers with an authoritative presence. As I grew older, I dreamed of nothing but carrying on that legacy. Carter Manufacturing was in my blood, the place where I poured my sweat, tears, and dreams. I held the role of production manager, a title that sounds impressive but was steeped in pressure. I improved production lines, negotiated with clients, and stayed up all night to keep the company afloat through crises. 10 years, and I never took more than 3 days off. Not because I was addicted to work, but because I wanted my father to be proud. I wanted him to look at me, his eldest son, and say, "Well done, Matt." But he never did. Instead, he reserved his warm pats on the shoulder for Ethan, my younger brother, who couldn't care less about the company. I didn't resent Ethan. He grew up spoiled by our mother, shielded by our father, living freely in a way I never could. All I wanted was to be treated fairly, for my father to acknowledge what I'd done. But that morning, on May 2nd, everything I had built came crashing down. And the one who dealt the blow was my father. That morning, the Erie sky was gray, with light rain falling as if foreshadowing something ominous. I had just finished a meeting with the production team and was sitting in my small office on the 3rd floor of Carter Manufacturing. A cold cup of coffee sat on my desk, papers piled high, and I was engrossed in calculating ways to improve the new production line. My phone rang. My father's voice came through, icy and devoid of warmth. "Matt, come to the meeting room. Now." I thought he wanted to discuss the big client contract for the following week. As usual, I adjusted my suit jacket, walked up to the 5th floor, and smiled at a few employees along the way. "Hey Matt, drinks tonight?" one of the workers called out. I nodded, still carefree. The meeting room was spacious, with a polished wooden table, but only my father was there alone. David, with his silver hair and piercing eyes, looked at me like I was a stranger. I pulled out a chair and asked, "Something important, Dad?" He didn't answer. Instead, he slid a stack of papers toward me. "Explain this." I picked them up and scanned the text. Emails. A series of emails bearing my name sent from my account to a rival company, SteelTech, Carter Manufacturing's biggest enemy. The content was chillingly detailed. Trade secrets, bidding prices, production plans. My heart pounded, threatening to burst. "Dad, I didn't send these. I don't know anything about this." He slammed the table, the sound startling me. "Don't lie, Matt, I've checked. The emails came from your computer. Do you think I'm a fool? 10 years I entrusted you with the company, and this is how you repay me, by betraying your family?" I stood frozen, as if slapped in the face. His words cut into my heart like a knife. "Dad, I swear I didn't do this. Someone set me up. Give me time, I'll find out who." "Enough!" He cut me off, his voice trembling with anger. "You're fired. Effective immediately. Get out of here and don't let me see your face again." I stared at him, waiting for a flicker of hesitation, a trace of trust in the son who had given his youth to Carter Manufacturing. But there was none. His eyes held only disappointment and contempt. I wanted Toramatic to smash the table to prove my innocence, but my feet felt rooted to the ground. I only mumbled, "Dad, why don't you believe me?" He turned away as if I were no longer his son. "You betrayed the family. Leave." I don't remember how I left the meeting room. My mind was spinning, my feet heavy. The company hallway was still buzzing with chatter and laughter. The people I had worked with, shared dreams with, called out to me as if nothing had changed. Matt, fishing this weekend? I nodded, fighting back tears, and kept walking. Back in my office, I packed my things in silence. The family photo on my desk, Dad, Mom, Ethan, and me, seemed to mock me. I had done everything to prove I was worthy, to make my father proud. But he cast me out, based on an accusation I couldn't comprehend. I left Carter Manufacturing as the rain began to pour. No umbrella, no car. I walked under the freezing droplets, each step pulling me deeper into pain. That night in my small apartment on the outskirts of Erie, I sat alone on the couch, a bottle of beer in hand. I didn't drink, just stared at it, like staring into my life, seemingly full but utterly empty. I thought of my father, of the times he smiled at Ethan, of the favoritism I tried to ignore. I wasn't jealous, but now I just wanted to know. Who did this? Who was cruel enough to set this trap? And why didn't my father give me a chance? The pain burned like a smoldering fire in my heart. I closed my eyes and told myself, I didn't betray anyone, and I will uncover the truth no matter the cost. The days after being fired from Carter Manufacturing, I was like a soulless shell. My small apartment on the outskirts of Erie became my own prison. I didn't go out, didn't answer the phone, just sat staring at my laptop screen, trying to find a clue, anything to prove my innocence. But the more I thought, the more I felt trapped. Who hated me enough to set up this perfect trap? Who had the ability to access my computer, forge emails, and convince my father I had betrayed him? I started with the smallest details. Those fake emails were sent from my computer, but I always locked it when I left the office. Someone must have had my password, or worse, hacked into the system. I wasn't an IT expert, but 10 years at Carter Manufacturing taught me enough to know the company's internal system wasn't easily breached from the outside. The person who did this had to be inside the company, someone close, someone who knew me well. I contacted Tom, a former IT technician at Carter Manufacturing who had worked under me. Tom was honest and always grateful because I had protected him during last year's layoffs. I texted him, arranging to meet at a small cafe near Lake Erie. Tom, I need your help, but this stays between us. Tom showed up, his jacket soaked from the rain. He looked at me with pity in his eyes. Matt, I heard what happened. I don't believe you did it. You're the best person at the company. Thanks, Tom, but I need you to check something. I handed him a USB drive containing copies of the fake emails I had gotten from an old colleague before leaving the company. Find out who sent these. I know they came from my computer, but I didn't do it. Tom nodded and promised to look into it. 2 days later, he called me, his voice trembling. Matt, you need to come over. This is big. I rushed to Tom's apartment, my heart pounding. He pointed to his laptop screen where a series of system logs was displayed. Someone used an admin account to remotely log into your computer on the day the emails were sent. But it wasn't your account. I traced it and... Matt, you won't believe this. Who? I almost shouted. Tom swallowed hard. Ethan, his account. I checked 3 times. There's no mistake. Ethan, my younger brother. The boy I used to carry on my shoulders, play basketball with in the backyard, the one I always let have his way despite our parents' favoritism. My heart felt like it stopped. No way! Ethan's not tech-savvy. And why would he do this? Tom shrugged. I only know what the data shows, but Matt, he didn't just log in. There are signs someone tampered with the logs to cover their tracks, but they didn't do it thoroughly. I found it because I know how to dig deep. I left Tom's apartment in a daze. The rain was still falling, freezing cold, but I felt nothing except the anger rising within me. Ethan. Why? I thought of the times he smiled brightly in front of our father, the times our mother defended him when he messed up. I remembered the fleeting looks of jealousy in Ethan's eyes whenever Dad praised me for landing a big contract, though those praises were rare. Had he always wanted to push me out of the family picture? I couldn't stop. If Ethan had forged the emails, I needed to know why and what else he had done. I dug deeper, reaching out to old colleagues who still trusted me. Sarah, the head accountant, was the next person I turned to. She had worked with me through tough times and always respected my straightforwardness. I called her, trying to keep my voice calm. "Sarah, I need you to check something, but Ethan and Dad can't know." Sarah hesitated, but eventually agreed to meet me at a small diner outside downtown Erie. She brought a stack of documents, her eyes filled with worry. "Matt, I'm not sure I should be doing this, but you deserve to know the truth." She showed me irregular transactions in the books, fake invoices, payments to non-existent suppliers, and inventory vanishing without records. In total, over $5 million had been siphoned from the company in the past 2 years. "I've had suspicions for a while," Sarah whispered, "but there was no clear evidence. Then I found emails from Ethan ordering the transfers, using an anonymous account. I kept copies just in case." I stared at the numbers, the emails, feeling the ground collapse beneath me. Ethan hadn't just framed me. He was embezzling, stealing from our family's company. I remembered the times he flaunted his new car, expensive watches, lavish vacations. I thought it was money from our parents, but now I understood. He had betrayed the family, not me. "Sarah, can you print all this evidence?" I asked, my voice trembling. She nodded. "But Matt, be careful. If Ethan's capable of this, he's more dangerous than you think." I returned home and spread Sarah's documents across the table. Emails, invoices, bank transactions, all pointing to Ethan. I found further testimony from a former warehouse worker who said Ethan had once asked him to overlook a shipment of inventory without logging it. Every piece fit together, forming a clear picture. Ethan didn't just want to bring me down. He was sabotaging Carter Manufacturing for his own gain. That night I couldn't sleep. I sat in the dark, staring at the family photo on the shelf. Dad, Mom, Ethan, and me. Fake smiles from days long gone. I once thought family was my foundation, but now I saw only betrayal. Ethan, the brother I had protected, had stabbed me in the back. And the most painful part was knowing that, even with evidence, my father might not believe me. He always saw Ethan as the golden son, while I was just the one working tirelessly to keep the company afloat. I clutched the stack of documents, a mix of anger and pain coursing through me. I wanted to confront Ethan, to scream in his face and demand why. But I knew it wasn't time yet. I needed more evidence, needed to be certain that when I brought the truth to light, no one could deny it. And most importantly, I needed to prepare myself to face my father, who might still choose Ethan despite everything. The rain continued to fall outside my window as if crying for me. I closed my eyes and told myself, I won't give up. Ethan took my honor, but I will reclaim the truth. I spent the week after uncovering the truth about Ethan preparing. Every night I sat in my small Erie apartment, the desk lamp casting light on a thick stack of documents, system logs from Tom, fake invoices from Sarah, Ethan's transaction emails, and testimony from the warehouse worker. It was like a book of sins, telling the story of my brother's betrayal. My hands trembled as I organized them, not out of fear, but because I knew the next step would change everything. I would confront my father, and deep in my heart I feared he wouldn't believe me. I arranged to meet my father at Carter Manufacturing, the place I once called home. Standing in front of the familiar factory building, I felt suffocated. The smell of steel and machine oil was unchanged, but I was no longer Matthew Carter, the production manager. I was just a man who had been fired, returning to demand justice. Clutching the briefcase of documents tightly, I walked inside. My father was in his private office on the 5th floor, where he always sat, overlooking the factory like a king. When I knocked, he looked up, a flicker of surprise in his eyes quickly replaced by coldness. "Matt," he said, his voice devoid of emotion. "What do you want?" I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "Dad, I need you to see this. I've found the truth. I didn't send those emails, and there's something bigger about Ethan." He furrowed his brow but said nothing. I placed the briefcase on his desk, opened it, and began explaining. I pointed to the system log showing Ethan had accessed my computer. I presented the fake invoices, bank transactions, and emails Ethan sent to transfer money. I described the unauthorized sale of inventory and the $5 million that had vanished from the company. My voice trembled not from weakness, but because I was exposing the truth about the brother my father always cherished. Dad, Ethan didn't just frame me. He's been stealing from the company, from the family. This is the evidence, clear as day. I waited. I waited for a nod, a flash of anger toward Ethan, or at least a question to understand more. But my father just sat there, silent, his hands clasped tightly. Then he pushed the stack of documents aside as if they were mere trash. "Are you done, Matt?" I was stunned. "Dad, you're not going to look at them? This is the truth. Ethan did all of this. I didn't betray anyone. He did." He looked at me, his gaze sharp as a blade. "You want me to believe that Ethan, the boy I raised, did this? While you, the one caught sending emails to Steel Tech, are innocent? Matt, you're trying to tear down your brother to clear your own name." His words hit me like a hammer to the chest. I felt like I couldn't breathe, as if the air in the room had been sucked out. "Dad, I'm not lying. I've spent my life keeping this company afloat. I improved production lines, secured major contracts, pulled us through crises. I never asked for your praise, but I don't deserve to be treated like this." He stood up, his voice low but icy. "You did all that for the company? Or because you wanted to prove you're better than Ethan? I know you're jealous, Matt. Since you were a kid, you've resented me for loving your brother. But please don't drag Ethan down to lift yourself up." I wanted to scream, to flip the desk to make him see. Jealous? I was never jealous of Ethan. I just wanted to be acknowledged, to be treated fairly, but he didn't see that. He only saw Ethan, the golden son who could make mistakes but always be forgiven. "Dad," I said, my voice hoarse, "will you read these documents? Just read them and you'll see what Ethan's done. The company is losing money, don't you care?" He turned away, looking out the window where the factory hummed with activity. "Ethan may have made mistakes. He's young, easily tempted, but he's not malicious. You, Matt, brought this stack of papers to accuse your own brother. Are you trying to destroy this family?" I stood there, feeling like my heart was breaking. I had hoped even just a little that my father would side with the truth. But he didn't. He chose Ethan, as always. I remembered my childhood when I brought home perfect report cards, but my father only smiled at Ethan for winning a basketball game. I remembered the nights I worked myself to exhaustion while Ethan partied, and my mother still said, "Let Ethan have fun, don't be too hard on him." I was used to the favoritism, but this time it cut into my heart like a knife. "Dad," I said, my voice barely a whisper, "I just want justice. I didn't betray anyone. I thought you'd want to save the company, save the family, but if you don't believe me, I don't know what else to do." He turned back, his eyes hard. "If you want to help the family, stop this. Don't take this outside. Ethan will fix his mistakes, but if you hand these to the police, you'll destroy everything, and don't expect to be in my will." I looked at him, the man I had once respected, the one I had done everything to make proud. But now, I saw only a blind father willing to sacrifice the truth to protect the son he loved more. I picked up the briefcase and walked out of the office without another word. The door closed behind me, and I felt a part of myself, the part that believed in family, die. That night I sat in my apartment staring at the documents on the table. I thought about the years of dedication, the sleepless nights, the contracts I secured to keep Carter Manufacturing alive. I thought about Ethan, the brother I once loved, now a betrayer, and I thought about my father who never chose me. The pain was no longer a smoldering fire. It was a storm sweeping me into memories I had tried to bury. I remembered when I was 15 when my father promised to take me camping but ended up going only with Ethan because he needed to have fun. I remembered the times my mother defended Ethan when he messed up, saying I was too rigid. I lived in a family but always felt like an outsider. I clenched my fists, a mix of anger and helplessness coursing through me. My father wanted me to stay silent, to protect Ethan, but I couldn't. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I could no longer live with the injustice. I had lost my job, my honor, and now my faith in family. I sat in my small, eerie apartment, the dim light casting shadows on the stack of documents on the table. The rain still fell outside the window, as if reminding me that the world beyond didn't care about the storm raging in my heart. After the conversation with my father, I had hoped even just a little that he would reconsider, that he would open his eyes to the truth. But he didn't. He chose Ethan, as always. And now, I had only one option left: to let the truth speak, even if it meant tearing the family apart. I knew that handing the evidence to the police would change everything. Ethan would pay the price, Carter Manufacturing would reel from the scandal, and my father would never forgive me. But I could no longer live with the injustice. 10 years of dedication, my honor, and my trust had been stolen by Ethan, and my father stood by, refusing the truth. I wasn't doing this for revenge. I was doing it for justice, for the company I had saved, for the workers who trusted me, and for myself, who deserved to be vindicated. I spent the entire night reviewing the documents, ensuring everything was perfect. System logs from Tom, fake invoices from Sarah, transaction emails, and the warehouse workers' testimony, all meticulously organized in a large envelope. The next morning, I drove to the Erie Police Department, my heart heavy. I paused in front of the building, clutching the envelope, wondering if I was doing the right thing. If I walked in, there would be no turning back. But if I didn't, I would live forever with the pain of betrayal. I took a deep breath and stepped through the glass doors. A police officer named O'Malley took my file. He skimmed the documents, frowned, and looked at me. "You're sure you want to do this? These are serious allegations, and it's against your brother." "I'm sure," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "I want the truth to come out." O'Malley nodded, promising to pass the file to the Economic Crimes Unit. As I left the station, the rain had stopped, but the sky remained gray. I felt a sense of relief, like a weight had been lifted, but also an emptiness. I had done the right thing, but I knew the cost would be steep. Just 3 days later, the news broke. Ethan was summoned by the police on charges of embezzlement and fraud. Carter Manufacturing appeared in local headlines with stories like "Scandal at Erie's long-standing family company." I read the news on my laptop, my heart pounding. Part of me was satisfied. The truth was out. But another part ached. The company I had sweated to save was now teetering, and my family, though never whole, was now completely shattered. I waited for a call from my father, hoping he would apologize or at least admit I was right. But my phone stayed silent. Instead, a week later, he summoned me to the house, the large home in Erie's suburbs where I grew up amid family gatherings and memories that never truly belonged to me. I walked into the living room where my father sat in an armchair, my mother standing beside him, her eyes red from crying. Ethan wasn't there, likely being questioned or hiding somewhere. My father looked at me, his gaze no longer one of disappointment, but of pure rage. "Are you satisfied now, Matt?" he said, his voice low but sharp as a blade. I stood there, feeling like a scolded child. "Dad, I didn't want this, but Ethan did wrong. He embezzled, framed me. I just wanted the truth." "The truth?" He stood, stepping closer to me. "You call putting your brother in jail the truth? Do you know what this scandal has done to the company? Clients are canceling contracts. Shareholders are panicking. You didn't just destroy the family, you destroyed my legacy." His words stung like a slap to the face. I wanted to scream that I wasn't the betrayer, that I had saved the company countless times, that I didn't deserve this treatment. But I just stood there, my voice hoarse. "Dad, I didn't do anything wrong. Ethan stole, he betrayed the family. I only did what was right." "What was right?" He gave a cold, bitter laugh, a sound I had never heard from him before. "You did this out of revenge, Matt. You've been jealous of Ethan since you were kids, and this is how you punish him. You wanted to prove you're better, but you're just a selfish coward." My mother stepped forward, placing a hand on my father's shoulder, but her eyes looked at me with reproach. "Matt, how could you do this to your brother? Ethan was wrong, but he's family. Couldn't you have handled this at home? I looked at my mother, who had always defended Ethan, and felt my heart shatter. Mom, I tried. I brought the evidence to Dad, but he wouldn't listen. I had no other choice. My father cut me off, his voice trembling with anger. You had a choice, Matt. You chose to destroy everything. From now on, I don't want to see your face again. You're no longer my son. His words were the final blade, severing the last shred of hope I had. I looked at him, the man I had done everything to make proud, and realized he had never truly seen me. I looked at my mother, who always chose Ethan, and knew she would never stand by me. I turned and walked out of the house without another word. The door closed behind me, and I felt I had lost my family forever. That night I sat in my apartment, a bottle of beer in hand, but I didn't drink. I thought about the years of dedication, the times I swallowed my pride in the face of favoritism, the nights I dreamed my father would look at me the way he looked at Ethan. But now, I was left with only myself. My father had disowned me, called me a betrayer, even though I was the only one who fought for the truth. The news about Ethan continued to spread. He was formally indicted, facing prison time for embezzlement and fraud. Carter Manufacturing lost more major contracts. Its stock plummeted, and my father held emergency meetings with shareholders to salvage the situation. I read it all in the news, but I felt no joy. I only felt emptiness. I had reclaimed my honor, but I had lost my family, and the company I once loved was crumbling. The rain fell again outside my window, as if weeping for what I had lost. But amid the pain, I felt a small spark of light. I was no longer bound by favoritism, by expectations that were never met. I had chosen justice, and no matter how high the cost, I knew I wouldn't regret it. I closed my eyes and told myself, this isn't the end. I will find my own path, where I am respected, where I can be myself. And this time, I won't let anyone take that away from me. After the day my father disowned me, Erie seemed to shrink. Every street corner, every road reminded me of Carter Manufacturing, of the years I poured my sweat into saving the company, only to be labeled a traitor. I cut off contact with my family, not out of anger, but because I no longer had the strength to endure more blame. My small apartment became a sanctuary, but also a place where I began to see light. I had lost everything. My job, my honor, my family, but I still had myself, and I decided to rebuild from there. An opportunity came unexpectedly. One morning, while sifting through emails, I received a message from Laura Bennett, the CEO of SteelTech, Carter Manufacturing's biggest rival. I had met Laura at industry conferences, where she was always impressed by the innovations I brought to production lines. Her message was brief. Matt, I heard about what happened at Carter. If you want a fresh start, call me. I hesitated. SteelTech was my father's enemy, the company I had fought to protect Carter Manufacturing against. Working for them would be like confirming the accusation that I had betrayed my family. But then I reconsidered. I owed nothing to Carter Manufacturing or my father anymore. They had turned their backs on me, and SteelTech was a chance to prove my worth, not to anyone else, but to myself. I called Laura. A week later, I sat in SteelTech's bright office just a few miles from downtown Erie. Laura didn't mince words. Matt, we need someone like you. You know this industry, you have talent, and more importantly, you're not afraid of challenges. I want you as our production director. What do you say? I looked out the window where Lake Erie sparkled under rare sunlight. For the first time in months, I felt a spark of hope. I'm in, I said, my voice firm. Starting at SteelTech wasn't easy. Some employees eyed me with suspicion, likely due to rumors from Carter Manufacturing. But I didn't let it bother me. I dove into work just as I always had. I improved production lines, optimized costs, and proposed a new product. A line of energy-efficient industrial equipment, something Carter Manufacturing had always lagged behind on. I worked with engineers, listened to workers' input, and built relationships with clients. Each day I felt myself come alive again, no longer Matthew Carter, the outcast, but Matt, respected for his skills. Just 6 months later, SteelTech launched the new product line. It was a resounding success, capturing market share in the Northeast and even surpassing Carter Manufacturing in several major contracts. During a meeting, Laura patted my shoulder in front of the team. "Matt, you're an invaluable asset to us. Thank you for trusting SteelTech." Her words were simple, but to me they were healing. For the first time, I was recognized without having to fight, without needing to prove I was better than someone else. At SteelTech, I wasn't compared to Ethan or bound by favoritism. I was free to be myself, and I realized that was what I had always craved. While I found my new path, Carter Manufacturing was sinking. I didn't actively follow the news, but word spreads fast and eerie. Ethan's scandal shook the company. Major clients canceled contracts, shareholders pulled out, and local papers kept digging. "Carter Family Company collapses amid internal scandal," one headline read. I read it with a heavy heart. I had once dreamed of keeping Carter Manufacturing strong, but now it was a sinking ship I couldn't save. My father tried to revive the company. He hired new directors, cut costs, and appeared in the press claiming Carter Manufacturing will overcome this hardship. But no one could replace what I had done. The production lines were outdated, the workforce was demoralized, and market share slipped to SteelTech. Once I overheard a former worker say my father publicly blamed me in a meeting, calling me the traitor who pushed the company to the brink. His words no longer hurt me. They only made me sad for a father who would never admit his mistakes. I didn't contact my father or mother, partly because I didn't want more accusations and partly because I needed time to heal. But one evening my mother called. Her voice trembled over the phone. "Matt, the company is struggling. Your father is so stressed. Can you come back and help?" I stayed silent, looking out the window where the city lights reflected on the lake. "Mom, I tried. I brought the truth to Dad, but he didn't listen. I have a new life now. I can't go back." She cried but said nothing more. When I hung up, I felt a deep sadness but also liberation. I was no longer responsible for Carter Manufacturing or the family that had turned its back on me. I was only responsible for myself. At SteelTech, I kept moving forward. I was promoted, led a national project, and was invited to speak at industry conferences. Each success was a confirmation. I didn't need my father or Carter Manufacturing to prove my worth. I remembered the sleepless nights at the old company, the times I endured favoritism, and I realized how far I had come. SteelTech wasn't just a new job, it was a new home where I was respected and free. 3 years after I left Carter Manufacturing, I read that the company had officially filed for bankruptcy. My father sold the factory, paid off shareholders, and withdrew from the industry. One article wrote, "David Carter blames the betrayal of his eldest son, Matthew Carter, for the company's collapse." I skimmed the words, feeling no anger. My father hadn't changed, still blaming me instead of acknowledging his and Ethan's mistakes. But I no longer needed his understanding. I had found my own path. That night, I stood by the shores of Lake Erie, the cold wind blowing through. I thought about the painful days, the family I had lost, and the man I had become. I was no longer Matthew Carter, the son trying to please his father. I was Matt, a man who rose from the ashes, who knew his own worth. I smiled for the first time in a long while. The rain had stopped. The sky was clear, and I knew I would keep walking forward without looking back.